Yeah, good to know. Do I have to bang you down? Good morning, everybody. It's May 9th, 2023. This is the governing board meeting of the St. Johns River Water Management District. Let's all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to start with our roll call. Our Vice Chairman, Ms. Gialbi White. Present. Mr. House. Present. Mr. Peterson. Mr. Atwood. Mr. Bornick. General Burnett.
Present, sir.
Ms. Price.
Present.
And Mr. Oliver is excused from the meeting today. All right, so we're going to begin, as we always do, with item 1, which is employee awards. Ms. Hudson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning. Robin Hudson, Human Resources Director. Okay, now we're ready. Congratulations to Curtis Freisinger, the May Employee of the Month. Curtis is the LIMS Data Warehouse Administrator in the Bureau of Water Resource Information. An example of Curtis's excellence is how he manages the water quality data upload to DEP, on time and up to date. He has drawn praise from DEP staff who have stated they wished all their data providers were as responsive and reliable as Curtis in providing the monthly transfer of thousands of water quality data records to DEP's statewide water quality database. Congratulations, Curtis. A 5-year service award to Brent Batchelder, Land Resource Specialist in the Bureau of Land Resources. A 10-year service award for Thomas Beasley, Senior Trades Worker in the Office of Transportation, Facilities, and Safety Services. Tom works on light and heavy fleet and heavy equipment from the Sunny Hill Fleet Shop. His skills are a huge benefit to the district in performing diagnostics, repair, and services to our vehicles and equipment. Tom is very thorough and takes pride in his work. He performs his work with great craftsmanship and the utmost confidence in his ability. He goes above and beyond to assure his work is all done correctly the first time. Tom was the May 2022 Employee of the Month. Thank you, Tom, for 10 years of dedicated service to the district. A 25-year service award to Kim Driggers, Legal Administrative Assistant in the Office of General Counsel. Kim is one of 2 legal assistants supporting the district's legal team. Kim is responsible for litigation support, tracking permitting and compliance matters, managing schedules, correspondence, and travel. Kim also has a well-deserved reputation for being thorough and prompt in her work. In addition, Kim is the early adopter of technology for the Office of General Counsel. She is responsible for learning the software and updates and then teaching the rest of the staff as well as solving problems as they come up. While working full-time, Kim is also attending Florida State College in pursuit of a degree in paralegal studies. She is currently on track to earn her degree next spring. We are very fortunate to have Kim in the Office of General Counsel, and we thank her for 25 years of service. Also, a 25-year service award for Chuck Falk, Laboratory Manager in the Bureau of Water Resource Information. Chuck oversees the operation of the district lab as a supervisor, business manager, and technical expert. Under his supervision, the lab has performed over 1.2 million analyses over the last 5 years. To ensure the lab is operating in compliance with standards and producing the highest quality data, the lab undergoes an annual assessment. The assessment results are always positive for the lab and indicative of the quality of work performed by the lab team. Chuck combines a steady work ethic with a desire to continually improve and develop his skills. He completed a master's in business administration as well as courses in supervision in government and lab management, which helps him improve lab operations. Thank you and congratulations on 25 years of service. A 30-year service award to Awas Karama, engineer scientist in the Bureau of Watershed Management and Modeling. Dr. Awas Karama is an engineer scientist who has developed surface water models in support of the district's vital water supply and minimum flows and level projects. Awas is a key hydrologic modeler for the MFL program, and he has made invaluable contributions to the assessment and development of MFLs on Lake Apopka, Brevard Lake, Indian Lake, and Wekiva River. He developed an innovative approach to visualize the inundation area for the assessment of the Wekiva River MFL. Awas successfully mentors junior engineers, providing them with valuable guidance and project review. Thank you for your 30 years of service to the district. And a retirement award today for Karen Davis, Administrative Assistant in the Bureau of Land Resources.
It's for me.
For nearly 26 years, Karen has been the central hub of Land Resources' rapidly spinning operations involving 7 office locations. She is the first point of contact for many members of the public with a myriad of questions ranging from recreational opportunities, regulatory easements, camping reservations, and day-use permits. Karen manages the district's online camping reservation system and day-use permits. She assists staff with signage development and special use authorizations. The best indication of how Karen serves the public is the volume of thank you messages received about Karen's helpfulness. Her customer service is unparalleled, and the praise she consistently receives from the public is legendary. Her good-natured demeanor and helpfulness have made her a great asset to the district. Karen was awarded the Employee of the Month and was nominated for Employee of the Year. We are grateful for her dedicated services to the natural resources in our care and to the multitudes of visitors to our conservation lands. Thank you, Karen, for your many years of service to the district, and congratulations on your retirement.
Congratulations, Karen, on your retirement, and congratulations to all of our honorees today. Thank you all for your service. All right, item 2 on the agenda, Ms. Mundy is going to present our hydrologic conditions report. You're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Governing Board. I'm Christine Mundy, Bureau Chief of Water Resource Information, and this morning I'm presenting, the May Hydrologic Conditions Report representing data from the month of April. Now, at the end of this presentation, I've added slides to address your questions about how we conduct discharge measurements. The rainfall in April varied from average or below average inland and northern counties to well above average in the coastal and southern counties. Brevard County in particular had a very wet April. Some areas at the north end of the county had over 11 inches of rain. Countywide totals ranged from 2.4 inches for Clay to 7.1 inches for Brevard. And district-wide, the monthly total was 4.18 inches. Nearly 1.6 inches above the long-term average. Rainfall over the past 12 months was well below average in the northern counties and well above average in the Orlando to Daytona region. To illustrate this, the countywide totals ranged from only 38.8 inches in Nassau, which is more than a foot below average, to 63.8 inches for Seminole, which is more than a foot above average. Flow conditions in the upper and middle basins of the St. Johns River were mostly in the high range for this time of year. The Wekiva and Ocklawaha River flow conditions were in the low range. Moving on to lake levels at selected long-term sites. Lake Brooklyn's water level decreased 0.6 of a foot during April. Lake Weir's water level decreased 0.2. Lake Winnimisset's water level decreased 0.1 of a foot. Lake Apopka's water level dipped, but then ended April at the same level as the end of March and is now just below its regulation level. Blue Cypress Lake water levels decreased 0.2 of a foot during April. At the end of April, the upper Floridan aquifer conditions remained mostly in the normal range. Water levels in many of the northern and inland wells decreased more than 10 percentile points during the last month. The upper Floridan aquifer index value at the end of April was 50, which is well within the normal range for this time of year. Moving on to spring flows at long-term monitoring sites. The monthly mean flow for Silver Springs decreased 39 cubic feet per second compared to March's mean, and the flow has now dropped into the low range for this time of year. The mean monthly flow for April at Blue Springs decreased 3 CFS compared to March. The monthly mean flow at Rock Springs decreased slightly, but flow is still in the high range for this time of year. And the mean flow at Wekiwa Springs decreased 2 CFS, but remained in the high range. In April, we plugged 5 wells, bringing the total saved by this program since November of 2020 to 36.6 million gallons per day. We currently have 2 contractors actively working on different areas of the district, and we expect to be able to use all the resources for that program for the remainder of the fiscal year. The most recently published U.S. Drought Monitor assessment still shows much of the district classified as moderate drought, but this is an improvement over the previous weeks. And now I have a series of slides that focus on how we do discharge monitoring. At the last board meeting, you asked us to present some information on how we conduct the measurements in the field. And before I begin those slides, I'd like to present a basic definition slide just to clarify terminology. Discharge is the volume of water flowing past a point per unit of time. It's a function of the water's velocity and the channel area, like a vertical slice through the channel. Just to look at the equation briefly, the velocity in feet per second is multiplied by the area of the channel in square feet, and that's how we come to cubic feet per second, which is the standard hydrologic monitoring, reporting method, at least in the United States. And we often frequently convert this to million gallons per day for your reference, since so much of our permitting data is in million gallons per day. So how do we measure or estimate discharge? It's actually a pretty complex process, but the basic approach is that we conduct field measurements of velocity. We apply the known channel area to calculate discharge, but that will only tell you the discharge at that particular point in time. In order to interpolate between field measurements, we continuously monitor a related parameter. And then we build a relationship between those discrete measurements and that continuous parameter called a rating curve. And we use that relationship to estimate the discharge at any point in time. So how do we conduct the first step, those field measurements? We do still use some tried and true equipment that's been around for a long time. These mechanical meters that spin as the water flows. And staff will take readings across the stream and then generate a single average velocity value from that series of measurements. We do still use this in very small streams. However, over the last several decades, technological advances have brought new tools that use acoustic wave-based measurements. Across the top is the example of the acoustic Doppler velocimeter, which measures velocity using acoustic pulses. And we use this device in shallower, wadable streams. Across the bottom is the acoustic Doppler current profiler. The actual measuring device is this unit here. And it fits in a little boat, as you see in this picture. And sound waves are scattered below the device into the water column as the boat moves along a transect. Sometimes we move the boat using a transect rope. Sometimes we connect it to a kayak and maneuver across a stream, as you see in the picture on the right. This device collects very dense velocity data, as you can see in the colorful chart at the bottom of the slide. And this is important because velocity does vary significantly in different areas of the stream. But in order to process all of this data, we use special software tools. Moving on to the next step of the process, which is relating the field measurements to a continuously monitored surrogate. The most common common surrogates are stage and groundwater level, and most of our sites are stage-based. However, with springs, the surrogate is often the water level in an adjacent well because the spring flow is a result of pressure in the aquifer. So the water level in a nearby well correlates to flow better than the water level of the spring pool itself. Building these rating curves is a very specialized skill set. It requires a lot of data, a lot of technical skill, and a wealth of knowledge about the system that you're measuring. There's a lot of factors that affect the measurements, and they have a significant impact on our discharge monitoring program. For example, if the stream channel changes, either through an erosional or a depositional event, staff have to remeasure the channel area and rebuild the rating curve. Second, a critical aspect of building an accurate rating curve is the range of conditions under which you conduct measurements. And I'll speak to that just a little bit more in a few slides. Tidal rivers are also very complex, and in fact, we rely on the USGS to do discharge measurements in those systems. And then there's backwater conditions, which we discussed briefly at the last meeting. The example in the graph here is the Wekiwa Spring. After Ian, the whole area was flooded, and this suppressed the flow out of the spring. To explore that a little bit more, of the springs in our district, we see this most commonly in Blue Spring. However, it's even more common in the Suwannee River Water Management District, from which I've borrowed these graphics. Many of Suwannee's big springs are directly adjacent to a river and thus have their flow suppressed or sometimes even reversed when the river's elevation increases. So in this graphic, you can see the water level in the aquifer driving the flow out of the spring, through the spring run and into the adjacent river. In this illustration, you see the river's elevation increase enough to actually force river water back into the spring. A smaller increase in elevation would result in a reduction in spring flow, not a reversal. And this reduction is what we commonly observe at Volusia Blue Spring. So I stated earlier that a critical aspect of building an accurate rating curve is the range of conditions under which we do field measurements. This requires staff to be out there not only at low flow or average flow conditions, but it's also very important to get high flow measurements. After major events like Ian, district staff get out as soon as possible to collect these high water measurements, often in very difficult conditions. And for that, we're very grateful. We're grateful for all the work that they do, but in particular in these cases when they're out in conditions that the rest of us are happy to not be out in. So we'd like to thank them for the work they do at these times. The pictures, the one on the left is Hogtown Creek, which is near Gainesville, in the Gainesville area. The middle one is the Little Wekiwa River. The one on the right is Hatchet Creek. And if you see the picture at the top with the circle, you can see our equipment box, the top of our stilling well, maybe solar panel. And after Irma, I believe, this is the exact same platform. The entire forest is completely flooded, and Ty had to kayak to get out to reach this equipment out here. On rare occasions, we just have to wait to make a discharge measurement until the flooding subsides. This is a Lower Gemini Spring site before Ian and after. And in fact, when we have a system with really widespread impacts, we have to call on extra staff to assist our core team. And it's gone. And I'm sorry. I lost a slide. Anyway, and thanks to everybody who gets out there during these difficult conditions. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, excellent presentation. We appreciate the information on how data is collected. You know, don't know where you've been and you don't know where you're going unless you have accurate data to tell us these things, and it certainly guides policy decisions. So data collection and the importance of data cannot be overstated. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Christine, can you go back to slide 14?
It's not. Is that the one you meant?
Oh, maybe it's 15. Go one more. Okay, go back to 13 then. Sorry. Yeah. The upper floating well index, how is that calculated, or where is that calculated? Where is the point at which they figure that?
So we have a series of, let me check my notes because I believe it's 11 wells, a set of 11 wells. Yes. And we kind of look to them to be, in essence, sentinel wells. And they cover we look back over a period of record that has the very, very high water levels as well as very low water levels. And so we aggregate the data from those wells to come up with this particular index. So it's a way for us to, on the previous map, this looks like at the spatial variation, but that's hard to judge over time. Combining those 11 wells into one index allows us to kind of track it over time and compare it to different years.
I'm just a little surprised it's so low. Not low, but it's in the normal range. It's been very high in our industry. It's the south end of the district because our microjet systems are popping up because the back pressure, we've never seen it, the pressure that high where your microjets pop up on their own without even turning on your pump. So, you know, it's pretty unusual. And that just means when you lose 500,000 acres of citrus that aren't pumping to greening, the aquifer is alive and well in our area. So I was expecting a higher figure, that's all.
Or maybe more blue at the end of at the southern end of the district on this map, perhaps.
Yeah, I would think so.
Currently where we are,
All right, thank you.
of course.
Okay, I'm going to go with Mr. Peterson first and then Mr. House.
I just wanted to say that the slides on the relationship between spring flow and the water levels.
That was an excellent slide because I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that relationship, particularly when we've had a lot of water flow, like you said, like at Blue Springs, and then the spring level is down. It seems to be concerning until you understand what's going on there. So that was an excellent graphic representation to let people know how that works. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. House.
I'm going to date myself in age. My second job out of college, I was the assistant public works director for a little town. And these guys drove all around town looking at lift stations, and I'm like, why are they doing this? And they used to go and they would write how many meters changed on each pump, and that's what happens. And so then if there was a problem, the pumps would run too long, and they'd have to say, hey, something's wrong with the pumps. Dating myself, that's 40 years ago. Now everything has telemetry, and it probably is now gone to cell phone. So if you go back, Christine, to your picture showing the guys floating the meters on this page, you know, it's a thought process that our guys are working on the side of a bridge, which is a roadway, and doing that. But there's a thought process of the lift station guys. Should we see how many important factors there are for bridge crossings that we should have some form of telemetry system, and how much does telemetry systems cost per station? And it's sort of just, you may not be able to afford to do it all in 1 year, but if you did 10 stations a year or 20 stations a year over time, you would eventually get it. So that might be something to do, because I'm not saying these guys are going to get hit by a car, but that's a lot of work when you could have telemetry and equipment do it. Now, I understand some of your stuff that you were using, Christine, was more like checking a transection of the water so you could actually do a channel analysis. But it seems like if there's 100 of these things out here that needs to be done, that may be something that's worth us investing in.
And let me clarify too, these are definitely flooded conditions. So with both of these river systems, they're not typically doing the measurement off the bridge. They're actually down in the water, but the actual floodplain and the floodplain forest is so flooded that this is kind of the only way that they can get to it under these specific conditions, excuse me.
But if we know the cross-section of the channel at a specific point, all we need is the water elevation for that thing, and the water elevation should be able to, I mean, if deer cameras can work in the middle of the woods and phone in your pictures of your raccoons eating all your feed, I would think we could do the same thing with something like this. And I don't know how much it will cost, but it's an idea.
Yeah, and Eric reminded me, I mean, these do have stage telemetry set up for both of these systems. It's a matter of what it takes then to relate that to having a specific measurement under these conditions. So
I guess I'm just volunteering to say, hey, if technology helps, we want to spend money on technology, because this data is important. And it may not be important today, but after 20 years, it's just like we're still looking at spring data from years and years and years ago, you know.
thank you.
Thank you. So something to consider.
Thank you, Mr. House. And I think the board is very interested always in making sure that the data is accurate, and if there's a way to make it more accurate or more safe for our employees in the collection of it, that's certainly something that and there's technology available to accomplish those goals. That is certainly something that we're always interested in pursuing. No doubt about it. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you. That was excellent.
Thank you for your interest.
All right, item 3 is the consent agenda for the governing board. That would be items 17 through 28. Do any board members wish to pull any of those items for discussion? Seeing that there's no one volunteering to pull any items or offering to do so, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item 4 is our annual independent auditing services item, and Sam Gardner is going to make that presentation, our Inspector General. And Sam, appreciate your work, and you are recognized.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Governing Board. I'm Sam Gardner, District Inspector General, here with a status report on the district's financial auditor selection and procurement process, and a request for the board to authorize the Executive Director to move forward on this item. Let me advance my slide. This first slide shows some basic background for the audit requirement that we have and the auditor selection process, which are both controlled by statute. And it shows the details of the auditor selection committee, which is an ad hoc committee of the governing board. This slide shows the basic timeline for the request for proposals and their scoring, which was established by the committee, and these processes have been completed. This slide shows the scoring totals for the 5 proposals received from the interested firms. The committee's intention is to recommend the top 3 firms to the governing board for consideration. We request the governing board approve the rankings and authorize the executive director to negotiate terms beginning with the highest ranked firm and to execute a 5-year contract when terms are reached.
All right. I want to first of all thank Ms. Galby White, Ms. Price, and Mr. Oliver for serving on that committee and doing this good work for the consideration by the board as a whole. Does anybody, Sam, thank you for your work on this as well. Does anybody have any questions for Sam or our chair of that board, Ms. Galby White, before we move forward? Yes, you're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend Mr. Gardner and the team. They kept us very organized and we had the information very on a timely basis. And I'm very proud of the process. Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you like to move approval of a?
I'd be happy to do that.
All right, thank you for that. We have a motion by the chair of our committee to approve the ranking of respondents. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by committee member Ms. Price. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item 5, we're going to consider proclamation of Water Reuse Week, something that we all celebrate and look forward to every year. That was a joke. Not that we aren't serious about reuse, but Mr. Fitzgerald, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I am John Fitzgerald, the Bureau Chief for Water Supply Planning. Today we have a brief presentation on reuse water and a request for the board to approve a proclamation to declare May 14th through 20th, 2023 as Water Reuse Week. The figure on the left shows the amount of reuse versus disposal in our district. The figure on the right highlights those utilities who are already reusing most of their wastewater and those where opportunities exist to increase reuse of the 168 million gallons a day of disposal. In 2021, Senate Bill 64 required the elimination of non-beneficial discharges of wastewater by 2032. Additionally, over the 20-year planning horizon, beneficial reuse in our district is projected to increase by an additional 84 million gallons per day. The district continues to work actively with utilities to develop and implement reuse projects that reduce both groundwater withdrawals and these discharges to surface waters. While irrigation leads the way to beneficially reuse reclaimed water, there are many other ways that it is being utilized. The district has supported recharge and rehydration projects, including the Ocala Wetlands Recharge Park, the City of Daytona Beach's Bennett Swamp Rehydration Project in Orange County, Water Conserve 2. We also continue to partner with utilities to investigate potable reuse as an alternative water supply option. In Florida, we use nearly 6.4 billion gallons of water per day. Florida is growing at a record pace with around 1,000 people moving to the state daily, and we also welcome an average of 350,000 visitors to our state each day.
We could hold on one second. I would like to note that our logo has gone from last place to first place on most attractive logos. Would we all agree with that? So let's reflect and admire on that for just a second. Okay, here, go ahead.
Without additional projects, our aquifers, lakes, and springs cannot keep up with the need for water. In fact, the state would need an additional 1 billion gallons of water per day by 2040. As such, a district is to partner with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the other water management districts, and industry leaders in the One Water Florida initiative to highlight the benefits of recycled water and how it will safely supply Florida's future. Reusing water relieves pressure on Florida's water resources and ecosystems. The more water we recycle, the more water remains in our rivers and springs for the plants and wildlife such as fish, birds, and manatees that rely upon them. Our water supply is not endless. Expanding the number of projects that use recycled water is one way we can help ensure there is plenty of water to meet the demand. This is part of our state's plan to be more sustainable, diversify its water resources, and protect the environment. Pending your questions, staff is requesting the board approve a proclamation declaring May 14th through 2023 as Water Reuse Week. I'd also like to inform the members of the board that on April 25th, the Southwest Florida Water Management District approved their proclamation for Water Reuse Week, and the South Florida Water Management District is requesting approval for their proclamation on May 11th. I would ask the chairman and the governing board members to join Mike for a photo in the signing of the Water Reuse Proclamation after approval.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
Moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, we had a motion approved by Ms. Price, a second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right. We're going to do yeah, all right. Yeah, everybody, if we. Can we put it down left hand? We're all going to stand next to you.
I've got to squeak by to attest.
Okay, we'll all wear purple shirts for the week. Right. That's my last reuse joke. All right, item 6, consideration of the district-wide agricultural cost-share program and Tri-County Agricultural Area Water Management Partnership cost-share program.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we start, I was
Yes.
gonna move for denial immediately and watch Doug fall over, but I decided not to.
Oh, yes. We actually had a whole thing, so
All planned out.
Yeah, we're going to delay, and got a few weeks to redo the list, and we're not really sure if the
Yeah.
revenues are there, and
What a friendly group.
Exactly. He was gone. Thank
send it to
goodness
the
he didn't
finance
hit.
committee for further
Review.
review. And,
Yes.
yes.
Doug, we're talking about you. We were saying I was gonna move for denial and watch your face immediately on the agricultural.
I missed that.
And then the chairman was saying we're gonna throw it to a committee.
Yeah, we're going to do some committee work on this. A task force. We'll do a task force. All right.
Field visits for every job.
Exactly. Okay, we're on item 6. You're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Clay Corsi, the Division Director for Water Supply Planning Division here. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Eden Yarborough. She's the project manager in our agricultural assistance team and will present agenda item 6 to the board.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm happy to be here this morning. My name, as Clay kindly mentioned, is Eden Yarborough with the Agricultural Assistance Team, here to present agenda item 6, the approval of the eligible cost-share projects for the Districtwide Agricultural Cost-share Program, the Tri-County Agricultural Area Water Management Partnership Cost-share Program, and related budget transfers. I am the incoming president-elect of the Florida Cattlewomen, and so I left Florida Cattlemen's Foundation pins at each of your places for you in appreciation of your continued support and commitment to not only Florida's ranchers, but the agricultural producers as well. It's very appreciated. Applicants for the Agricultural Cost-share Program must meet eligibility requirements as shown on the slide. And unlike previous cycles where there was an application deadline, from this round forward, we will make applications open on a year-round basis, and applicants that are eligible for the program will be served on a first-come, first-served basis, and each new cycle will begin on the first day of the new fiscal year. The Tri-County Agricultural Area Water Management Partnership is for producers in Putnam, Flagler, and St. Johns counties. This partnership has 3 funding entities: the Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Services, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the district, with technical assistance from the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the University of Florida with their Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. This cycle was opened for funding in December of 2022 with a deadline for funding consideration of February 1st of 2023. The 3 agencies then got together and divided up the eligible projects. Sorry, I forgot my slide there. 11 applications were received for the TCAA program. 9 are being recommended for funding, with 4 being funded by FDACS, the remaining 5 being funded by the district. They are shown at the top of the chart from CP and Wesley Smith down to Yuan Farms. District staff reviewed 7 applications for the district-wide program, and 1 did not meet the intent of the program. So the remaining 6, 4 are being funded for 4 are being recommended for full funding, and 2 are being recommended for partial funding. And these are shown at the bottom of the chart from Liner Source down to GP Farms. The resource benefits for this round are shown on the slide. For this cycle, 9 of the projects are benefiting water quality with expected fertilizer use reductions and precision fertilizer placement. 2 of the projects are to convert from seepage to irrigation drain tile on row crops in the TCAA. Since 2013, it's estimated that 26% of the row crop and sod land in the TCAA has been converted to more efficient irrigation systems, with irrigation drain tile and center pivots estimated to conserve approximately 50% of irrigation water. The project types for this cycle are listed here. More growers are moving to liquid applications of fertilizer. It's a notable benefit to the resource because dry fertilizer can run off after heavy rainfall events. Liquid fertilizer is generally applied in smaller quantities and a little bit more frequently than dry fertilizer. And this picture right here shows there is a tank up there that feeds the liquid fertilizer down, and it gets knifed right actually into the beds, and then it gets covered right back up afterwards with the latter part of the equipment. And this not only reduces overall fertilizer use, but it puts the fertilizer excuse me, right into the root zone, so it minimizes leaching from happening. I could stay and talk with y'all about ag all day, but I'll cut to the chase and let you know that the requested action on agenda item 6 is authorization for the executive director to execute cost share contracts as shown on the slide.
All right, are there any questions of Mr. Yarborough?
I've got a couple.
Yes, sir, you're recognized, Doug.
Is there any money left in the bank? Yes?
They might be able to answer that better than me.
Yes?
Clay Corsi, could you tell the folks,
Certainly.
you obviously introduced
Clay
yourself
Corsi,
earlier,
the
but-
Director of the Division of Water Supply Planning. We're actually, one of the budget transfers is that's actually asking for additional funding because we're out of what we had put together in our budget for this fiscal year. So we'll have used the bank plus additional money on top of that.
Oh, darn it. Okay, I was hoping to re-advertise and get more people in. This is such a great program. I wish more people could go out and see the difference of before an ag operator did what he was doing and then afterwards. It's phenomenal. It really is. I've witnessed it firsthand in a pretty big industry. It's just an incredible savings for our environment and for the soils and the resources that we deal with. It's really one of the best spends that this district does, and I just think it's great. And I hope we can improve this budget in future years. Thank you.
Well, I certainly think that's something as we start to gear towards budget time to be mindful of, and we always appreciate your advocacy of it and agree with your conclusions. I do for sure of how valuable this program is. Thank you, Doug. Is there any other questions of the presenter? Mr. House.
I just think we blew it. We could have really teased Doug. I'm just
yeah.
pointing that out. It was the perfect
It
opportunity.
was.
And I'll second Doug's motion for approval.
You had a motion, Doug? Okay, and we have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any further discussion on this item, agenda item number 5? Yes, Ryan, you're recognized.
Consultant for one of the applicants.
Understood. And there's, appreciate you sharing that. And there also is documentation reflecting that as well, that we all are required to fill out when these things have, these things come up. And thank you for offering that explanation of why you're not going to be voting today. All right.
One more comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think it's really nifty that this district has an ag committee and that we have an ag cost share, and we support the ag producers so heavily in this basin because it's that property, it's the land that's still out there that's not rooftops, it's not strip malls, it's not cities. It is that land that produces our food and our future water supply, and we need to keep these people in the open space that they have as the key fabric for the future of the environment of the St. John's and Indian River Lagoon and all that we do. These are the people we have to embrace. Just if you look in an aerial of South Florida and look from State Road 80 south, there's nothing left. And our future water supply is going to come off of these people's property. And we need to keep them in business. We need to support them and help them any way we can, because this is it. I mean, every time I go south to where I used to live in Palm Beach County, it breaks my heart. I don't even recognize it because the county's not got, when I lived there was 100,000. Now there's 1.6 million in Palm Beach County. And they've built all the way out to the edge of the Everglades ag area. We just need to embrace these people. That's where our water and food and fiber is going to come from in the future. And we need to keep them here as long as we can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And we're at the tipping point, and we have to make a decision as a state and that about where we're going to go. Are we going to make a real concerted effort to preserve the real Florida and our environment and our food supply? All the above. All right. Anybody else have any comments? We had a motion and a second. and some good discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, after hearing that very passionate speech from Doug, I think if we would have done it, he would have fallen over with the Widowmaker. So I'm glad we didn't.
Yes, it was probably wise that we refrained. All right. I think I may have misstated one of the slides. One of the slides, I think that was item 6, okay? For the and we just voted and had a second and unanimously approved item 6, the cost share programs. I'm not sure what the slide said, but I just want to make sure that the record and our minutes correctly show what we all understood to be voting on just now. We're going to move to item 7, land management plan update for the River Lakes Conservation Area. Brent, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Brent Batchelder. I serve the district as a land resource specialist in the Bureau of Land Resources. Today, I will be presenting the 10-year land management plan update for River Lakes Conservation Area in Brevard and Osceola counties. River Lakes is an important component of the Upper St. Johns River Basin project, the goals of which are to restore and preserve important water resources, provide water storage to reduce and attenuate flooding, and provide related wildlife and environmental benefits. The district is the lead manager for River Lakes. The property is currently being managed under a plan that was approved in 2011, and a wide range of resource management actions are conducted at River Lakes each year. Land manager Johnny Baker, along with 3 staff members, manage River Lakes in addition to 6 other properties in the Upper Basin, totaling more than 165,000 acres. The land management plan being considered today identifies goals and objectives to implement on River Lakes over the next 10 years. So, River Lakes is an approximately 40,000 acre regionally significant conservation area, shown in orange on the map to the right. The property is situated squarely in the middle of the Upper St. Johns River Basin between US Highway 192 and State Road 520, west of Cocoa, Rockledge, Vera, and Melbourne. About 28 miles of the St. Johns River Channel flows through the property, and River Lakes borders large parts of Lake Washington and Point Set and encompasses the entire shoreline of Lake Winder. River Lakes is also part of a network of conservation land. Within the Upper St. Johns River Basin, about 100 miles and 300,000 acres of river floodplain is protected. River Lakes directly receives stormwater from a large area and provides significant resilience to surrounding lands through floodwater attenuation, as shown in the photo on the left of this slide, taken following Tropical Storm Faye in 2008. A deeply flooded portion of River Lakes adjacent to Interstate 95 is shown in the foreground, and the rooftops and roadways of Rockledge are shown in the background. River Lakes is comprised of numerous parcels, as shown on the map to the right of this slide. Parcels include a 1977 transfer from the Central and South Florida Flood Control District, and significant additions have led to River Lakes more than doubling in size over the past 40 plus years. The most recent acquisitions of the property closed just last year. One of the parcels at River Lakes is a 2,000 acre tract owned by the state of Florida on the west side of Lake Washington. As shown on the map to the left of this slide, numerous agreements and encumbrances are in place at River Lakes, including a 7,000 acre cattle grazing lease. River Lakes is located in the St. Johns River Valley. As shown on the map on the right, most of the property is floodplain, which is about 2 miles wide and between 10 and 12 feet in elevation. During periods of high rainfall, River Lakes receives a large volume of water from the numerous tributaries along this stretch of the St. Johns River. In general, tributaries on the west side of the river in this area are streams, draining uplands that are predominantly managed as forest and or cattle land. Whereas on the east side of the river, drainage canals discharge from the communities of Viera and Rockledge into the river. In cooperation with our partners at the United States Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Conservation Service, 6,000 acres of marsh at River Lakes has been reconnected to the river hydrologically, restoring that portion of the marsh at the Duda Moxon Island tract at River Lakes. A weir shown in the background of the picture on the left here, right there, maintains a minimum water level upstream of the outflow of Lake Washington at River Lakes. In addition to providing natural system benefits, the Lake Washington Weir helps protect water supply for the city of Melbourne. Managing intact vegetation and a stable marsh bottom adjacent to this structure is important for maintaining its structural stability. Natural communities at River Lakes, as shown on the map and photos of this slide, are dominated by herbaceous, shrub, and forested floodplain wetlands, which account for about 70% of the property. Approximately 12% of the property is open water. Only about 3% of the property are upland natural communities. Improved pasture accounts for approximately 7% of the property, and thousands of acres of improved pasture have been converted to wet prairie and associated wetland natural communities over the past 10 years at River Lakes. Natural community restoration and management will continue to be a primary focus on the property. Recreation at River Lakes is managed under a low-intensity, multiple-use concept that provides opportunities for outdoor recreation that is compatible with natural resource protection. A wide variety of recreational activities are allowed in the property. As shown on the map to the right, most of the property is managed cooperatively with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission as part of the Upper St. Johns Marsh Wildlife Management Area. Recreational infrastructure at River Lakes includes 4 inclement weather shelters and 11 campsites that are primarily accessible via water. The district is pursuing strategies and partnerships to benefit management of the 11 campsites at River Lakes. The plan being considered today identifies 9 goals and 34 objectives meant to be broad statements aimed at achieving desired future outcomes at River Lakes. Goals identified within the plan address water resources, restoration, invasive plant management, habitat management, outreach, and recreational and infrastructural conditions. Some of the objectives within this plan include innovative projects, such as an exotic fish harvest project that has been initiated on Lake Winders and Florence. The estimated cost of managing River Lakes over the next decade is just over $1.35 million, while the cattle grazing lease revenues over the same time period will be approximately $1.45 million. The ecosystem services provided by wetland natural communities at River Lakes are estimated to provide an average annual value of nearly $250 million. Due to Board of Trustees ownership of approximately 2,000 acres of land at River Lakes, this management plan will be considered by the State of Florida's Acquisition and Restoration Council following approval by this board. That concludes my presentation. At this time, I would like to request approval of the land management plan update for River Lakes Conservation Area. Thanks for your time. I'm available for any discussion.
Any questions for Brent?
I have one quick comment.
Yes.
Back in the good old days when the board would go to different locations in our district a lot more, back 15, 20 years ago when we did some road trips, we did one here along this stretch, and it's so by airboat. And it was so cool to be in an airboat and hear the din of I-95 just 500 yards away, but you're in the most pristine, beautiful habitat in Central Florida. It really was worth the trip. And if ever we can get our board on an airboat down there, if you all want to take a road trip, it's a pretty neat trip to see all of the upper basin and the beauty of it. And this stretch of it is one of the prettiest.
Well, is that a motion? That's a great idea. And let's, in all seriousness, let's talk after the meeting about putting something like that together,
Yep.
whether it be at this particular conservation area or, maybe try to do something also nearby as well, to do more than one thing at once, kind of knock out a couple of the lands that we all oversee. General Burnett, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. I vote yes on anything to do with an airboat ride. They're fun. Even if it's not in our district.
Well, at any point I've got one, you just come on down and it's just about as close to flying a jet as you can without getting off the ground.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's it.
There you go. That's great.
That's why I like it.
That's great. Yeah, that's why you know about that, don't you, Jim? General? Okay. So, are there any questions for Brent? Is there any comment cards? Because I saw some comment cards show up. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the management plan?
Cool.
All right, we have a motion by General Burnett, a second by Ryan Outwood to approve the management plan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved unanimously. We're going to go to item number 8, mechanical shredding of floating vegetation mats within the Orange Creek restoration area. That's going to be for our consideration, and the presenter on the item is Brian Emanuel. You're recognized.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Brian Emanuel, Chief of the Bureau of Land Resources. I'm here today to talk about mechanical vegetation removal or shredding at Orange Creek Restoration Area in Palatka and Marion counties. Orange Creek Restoration Area is part of the historic marsh and floodplain of Orange Lake, as well as the larger nutrient-impaired Orange Creek Basin. Beginning in the 1920s, the marshes on Orange Creek Restoration Area were ditched and drained for agricultural use. The district purchased the property in 1998, and shortly thereafter started the restoration work, which included removing of all the levees and filling the ditches, removing pumps, and reflooding the marsh. Restoration work continues on the site and has shifted focus to invasive and nuisance plant management. After 2 years of mechanical harvesting projects on this site, we would like to provide additional benefits by utilizing a shredding technique of floating vegetative mats on Orange Creek Marsh. This will reduce the coverage of invasive and nuisance plants, primarily Cuban bulrush, and enhance recreational opportunities on the property as well. The project is funded by mitigation funds from the Florida Department of Transportation. This infrared satellite image shows the results of the first year's harvesting project when approximately 30 acres of invasive tussocks were removed. These tussocks break off from the larger floating mats in the west part of the marsh and blow around the open water, often scouring native aquatic emergent vegetation and sometimes impeding boat access from the launch. This project will focus on shredding of approximately 100 acres of floating vegetative tussocks. They're approximately 1 foot in material depth, floating with limited attachment to the substrate. The tussocks are composed primarily of invasive species, mostly Cuban bulrush and some Peruvian primrose willow. FWC has conducted multiple similar projects shredding on the same type of vegetation on Orange Lake in recent years with great success. The district and the contractor will utilize GPS to track the project's progress. We have received the aquatic plant management permits from FWC, the Florida Department of Agriculture 404 exemption, and as well as a compatible use authorization for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, as this site is encumbered by a Wetlands Reserve Program easement held by the NRCS. This procurement is a piggyback off of a current Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission RFP contract with CLR Aquatics Inc. Staff recommend an award and authorization of the Executive Director to execute a contract with CLR Aquatics Inc. for mechanical shredding of 100 acres of vegetated tussocks within the Orange Creek Restoration Area, not to exceed $148,120. Whoops.
All right, are there any public comment cards on this item?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chris Farrell with Audubon, Florida.
All right, come on forward and share your thoughts, please.
I am Chris Farrell with Audubon, Florida. So this specific project, I'm actually going to talk with staff about after the meeting to learn some more details on. I just wanted to throw out a few ideas that Audubon's seen in this and similar projects throughout the state. and some concerns we have. And Orange Lake specifically is a very interesting area with the floating tussocks and how they move around, and management and when to manage can be a difficult decision. So the things we like to see, and to a degree has been developed for Orange Lake, is a plan that considers the environmental aspects as well as all the other goals, recreational access. And the idea is that we want to make sure we're spending our money efficiently and effectively, especially, learning that this is mitigation money that's funding this project. I would say the lasting environmental benefit is what we want to see from mitigation. And that's what we don't see from these type of projects. The vegetation grows back so quickly. If a few years ago, the district did similar projects where it was mechanically removing, and then it's mentioned, this is an impaired area, and you're taking out some nitrogen and phosphorus, which then has an additional benefit that you can prescribe to the project. But when it's being shredded, that material just stays within the system. They're often, it is removing some invasive species that have grown in the system, but it's shredding them actually. And so there are concerns with seed material and propagules and parts of that being carried by the water to other parts of the system. That can be addressed somewhat by timing of the projects. But so the one thing I want to highlight is this is it's habitat, and there's a lot of wildlife in it. There's secretive marsh birds, rails, and whatnot that use these dense stands. A lot of reptiles and amphibians. So timing of when the removal is being done is important. And it's just the efficiency is the worry. In Orange Lake, you can remove a whole bunch of this vegetation, clear out a boat ramp, and then the next day the wind changes direction and a new tussock comes in there and blocks it. So making sure that these projects have lasting impacts besides temporary recreational use, and trying to think there's other parts of the state where these projects are being done too, where and in Orange Lake similar. Water levels have a lot of effect on when this vegetation's there and when it's open water. And sometimes it's just the water levels and the management of the system that's creating these conditions, and trying to fight that with opening the water through mechanical harvesting can really be expensive and flies against kind of what nature's doing at that point in time. But so I'll continue talking with staff about this specific project.
Hold on one second.
Sure.
I think that Mr. Peterson wanted to explore some of your comments a little further. You're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, if we have a choice between this or, applying herbicides, could you speak to your druthers on that? Because sometimes it's the least of two evils.
Yeah, right. So I understand that it's tough, and so this is where I go back to. Sometimes it's larger system management, and what are we trying to achieve? Sometimes the answer might be neither, because maybe we don't need to do either of those at this point in time. What are the goals that we're actually trying to achieve? If we decide we have to remove this vegetation right now, and it's not just going to blow back and it's not going to be replaced immediately by something else. If the goals are to get rid of the invasive species, there might be times when certain applications of certain herbicides first, followed by another treatment, is going to reduce the threat of that invasive species, like from mechanical shredding, where it might just get disseminated throughout the habitat, might actually affect. And the idea there is nobody loves spraying, and there's been a lot of talk about spraying, but if you do a combination integrated management that reduces the level of invasive species as much as you can, then that means you have to do less management of any type later. If you do methods that are somewhat effective but not as effective, you have to keep doing them longer over time, which becomes another problem. So
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. House. Go ahead.
Couple questions.
Go ahead and hold. Who are you asking for?
I'm gonna ask staff, but I may need him also.
Okay, Chris, just, if you could just have a seat right close by. May phone a friend. This is for our staff, and Brian is gonna receive this question, and then I got Mike as backup. Go ahead.
So it says the funding source is DOT mitigation, so there's evidently money in a fund that DOT's put up, and we've chose this project for DOT. Does it mess them up if we don't do this right now, or does that hurt a project for them?
Missy's here to back me up on this. There was a pot of money set aside from this is the last of it. We've spent it on 3 previous projects, one at the Berry Bayou, mechanical harvesting, and that was a different kind of harvesting than what we've done out here. That was with an excavator, floating excavator. What we did out here was with barges that are taking the floating stuff. That money was that from the causeway? But it had to be spent on vegetation management, correct?
I guess the question is, does this hold a project up? If we say, and does this need to be done today?
Yeah, the question is, does this have any impact on DOT moving forward with any of their projects? We could spend this money 3 months from now, and that would have no impact on DOT.
Correct.
That's correct, right? Correct. Okay, that's the answer to your question.
That was my first part
Right.
one. And then the second, the conversation that brought up mechanical harvesting, shredding versus chemical, like sonar or whatever, that sort of gives the plant a cancer, and as it finally dies, it has less decay, so therefore it eats less oxygen than water. That would be an interesting, I think, lesson for us on a policy, but I don't mind either. This sounds terrible. I think this is not a significant amount of harvesting one way or the other, but I do understand what the Audubon Society's gentleman's saying. That we should probably have a better plan than just jump on this, and this may be adverse in timing, etc. So I don't mind learning more about methodologies, what's better for the environment.
Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to come back to item 8. We're going to put this item 8 on hold for just a few minutes. There's probably a couple people that want to do a little background research while we're all still here in the building. We're going to move to item number 9. Thank you. And we will come back to item number 8. Item number 9 is consideration of submerged aquatic planning project at Lake Apopka, and Dean is going to handle that. Go ahead.
Morning, Mr. Chair, board members. Dean Doberfull, Water Resources Bureau Chief. Today I'll be asking the board to approve a contract to plant native submerged aquatic vegetation in Lake Apopka. This project is part of a larger cooperative plan with the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to restore and maintain habitat in the lake. The selected contractor will use 2 planting techniques that have been shown to be most successful based on previous research in Lake Apopka. We will also be sourcing plants with different ecotypes, which provide a population with different traits that are better suited to the dynamic lake environment. As I mentioned, this is a cooperative program with FWC. They have invested $3.3 million this April in treating large expanses of invasive hydrilla in Lake Apopka. This map shows April's treatment areas with aerial treatments in the black polygons and boat treatments in the white polygons. FWC selected these areas in response to stakeholder input, including comments from district staff. The locations were selected to reduce overall hydrilla coverage, protect previous native planting areas, and clear out areas for this current planting project. There are several sites around the perimeter of the lake that are already permitted to receive native plantings, shown by the yellow polygons in the map. You can see the overlap of FWC's treatments in our planting areas. Portions of some of these sites have already been planted, but sufficient areas remain both for this project and future plantings. The image on the right shows plants weighted with burlap-wrapped roots being deployed in the lake. Our goal is to install approximately half the plants this spring and the remainder next year. So I request that the board take the action recommended here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr.
All right,
Chairman,
yes, you're recognized, Ms. Price.
is this eelgrass you're trying to put down
We're,
primarily?
we're putting both Vallisneria and Potamogeton.
Okay.
So Illinois pondweed and
Okay.
eelgrass.
All right, just curious about that.
I've got a
Challenging to get eelgrass to establish itself, depending. Although you've had pretty good success, haven't you, in Apopka as opposed to maybe some other
We've done this a few
areas?
times, and we see very, very good success.
That's good news. Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Price, does that satisfy your questions about this matter for right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atwood.
My question was concerning the follow-up in terms of, do you guys take stock of how much success we have when we do something like this? Like
Absolutely.
70%, 50%? How often is that done, and what does that look like?
So we have a concurrent contract with the University of Florida to do the monitoring of both past plantings that we've installed to look at long-term success as well as the success of this current planting. They will be going out quarterly for the next 2 years, I believe, to follow the success, because it's still a bit of an experiment in terms of which plants are most successful, which techniques are most successful, and we're interested in, verifying that for future projects.
All right, Mr. Peterson.
Is the FWC application of hydrilla removal, is it affecting some of the stuff that we've planted? I mean, is it selective herbicide? How does that work? I mean, are we replanting areas again now that we may have already planted in the past that was damaged by that, or how's that work?
No, so it's a combination of a selective herbicide that does not affect Vallisneria or eelgrass, and avoidance. So the Potamogeton that we've put in is affected by some of the herbicides. So they, in collaboration with us, we try to avoid those areas that we put Potamogeton in.
All right, General Burnett, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have we done any research or analysis of the eelgrass growth in Silver Springs? Because over the years, there's been huge changes there. Any lessons to be learned from what's going on there?
We actually did quite a bit of work we had a very large project with the University of Florida, looking at all of the outstanding Florida springs, but focusing on Silver Springs. And a substantial part of that work was in eelgrass. And in as much as it speaks to what we're doing in Lake Apopka, they're very different systems, but we have done quite a bit of work, both at Silver Springs, and we also monitor 7 or 8 other outstanding Florida springs for SAV status.
And no problem. Anybody else have any questions on item number 9 before we move to potential action?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve agenda item number 9. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to approve item 9 passes unanimously. And for the minutes, show item 8 temporarily postponed. Item 10, Newton Park Dredging Design. Bob, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Bob Nelway, Chief of the Bureau of District Projects and Construction. Today, my item for your consideration is for your approval to authorize the Executive Director to negotiate and execute a contract with WSP USA for the Newton Park Dredging Design. The Newton Park is located in the southeast shore of Lake Apopka near the city of Winter Garden. The park has a boat ramp that was designed to provide public access to the lake. Because of accumulated organic muck and unconsolidated flock in the vicinity of the boat ramp, navigation access from the ramp is poor. The nutrient-dense sediment is a nuisance to boaters and when disturbed through prop wash adds to suspended solids in the water column. This work you are considering today is for the design and permitting of the dredge of a 4,000-foot long but 600-foot wide access channel from the Newton Park boat ramp. The dredging footprint is called out and represented in yellow on the bottom of this map. This channel will provide better access for boaters and reduce boat disturbance of the lake bottom. One feature I do want to point out on the map is the white line across the lake. This is actually just the Lake Orange County line separating the two counties.
Right. That's a political boundary. There's nothing on
Exactly.
the ground. Got it.
Just shows up right in the middle of the lake.
I was wondering what that was. I thought there was a problem with the slide. All right.
Engineering design and permitting is funded partially by the City of Winter Garden and partially by the district for a total funding of $300,000 for the design and permitting. Dredging material may be placed on the Lake Apopka North Shore in the cell represented by the yellow hashed rectangular area in the upper right of this figure. There's only one respondent to the advertisement from WSP USA. Staff have evaluated the qualifications package from WSP, and they more than meet the minimum qualifications listed on the left side of this slide. Additionally, WSP has completed other successful dredging design projects for the district, including the dredge setup shown here, which was on Lake Apopka. Several consultants submitted a no response form, of which 4 indicated they do not provide this type of service. 2 were unable to meet the specifications, and 1 indicated insufficient time to respond to the solicitation. Staff reviewed the solicitation documents and process. The RFQ was advertised for a full month, and there were no requests to extend the submittal deadline. Additionally, staff believe the minimum qualifications are appropriate given the size of the project. Finally, here's the requested action, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Looks like we have a situation where there's not a lot of competition. Does anybody have any questions regarding this matter?
I have kind
Yes,
of a
Ms.
project
Price.
question, just as far as I guess the overall long-term goals of the project. Just wondering if this is something that has to be repeated on any frequency, or it's a longer term, we do it when it's a problem. If it's the first, it might be useful to have a longer term programmatic approach.
So we've been looking at this project for about 10 years. And the initial consultant looked at it, estimated about a 7 to 10 year maintenance cycle would be needed to come and remove accumulated sediment. I mean, the reason why this area is, it's a boat ramp, and likely there was a pretty good channel out in the lake at one point. But the unconsolidated material in the lake moves around and obviously filled that in. So their estimate was every 7 to 10 years you may have to come back and do some additional dredging.
Okay. No, I think given that time frame, you probably just have to do these one-offs and find out who's out there who can actually do the work through this bidding process, as opposed to what I was envisioning is could we get a longer-term arrangement, but it may not make sense given the time frame here.
One thing I
Go
mentioned
ahead.
that's highly dependent on the lake level, how much the stuff moves around. At lower lake levels, it moves around easier within the lake. So lake levels have been nice and high for several years now, so you're not likely to get the same amount of movement under the higher water level conditions that you do at the lower water level conditions.
Madam Vice Chair.
So did I see correctly that HDR is a subconsultant to WSP?
Yes.
Okay, so not a lot of engineering companies have this specialty, and HDR is a big firm. WSP is very qualified. So I'm okay with this.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
do you know how many approximate yards of removal you're going to do and move?
I think it's 350,000 cubic yards is the estimate.
Fantastic. Motion for approval.
Right. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. There you go.
Well, it's less than $1 a yard for removal, so In the Indian River, we're paying $10 a yard.
This is
I think
just for
there's-
the design.
This is just, yeah.
But another Lake Apopka dredging projects were coming out around that $10 cubic yard number that you found in other places. So when we
Just
get to a
design.
bid, we'll see what we come out with. But
So if you go back to the design being 10%, the numbers, it's $1, 10% of $10, so that's still not good.
All right, so any other questions on this item? We're on item 10, members. And we don't have any public comment cards, and I don't think there's any public comment cards until we get to the end, right?
Next one is 13.
Okay, got it. I digress. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right, we're going to move, and members, I appreciate your patience today. We have a lot of business that we're conducting in the district right now, and we've had a couple of months where there hasn't been a lot, and now we've had a bit of a backlog. And appreciate everybody's patience, and I know that everybody spent a lot of time reviewing and talking with staff and getting prepared for the meeting. So thank you very much all for your selfless public service. We don't get a raise on this one. It's going to go from 0 to 0 in terms of what we get paid, but it's an honor, no doubt. Okay, item 11, consideration to amend the adopted 22-23 budget for Indian River Lagoon stormwater projects. Hey, Dale, how are you?
Good morning, Chair Bradley.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning, board members. I have 3 consecutive items for your consideration today. The first is requesting approval to amend our fiscal year 2022-23 adopted budget by up to $7 million, all in state funding, for 15 Indian River Lagoon stormwater projects. Last month, the Executive Office of the Governor approved our request to amend our budget, and a copy of that approval is in your board folder for this item. The state money is from a prior year appropriation for IRL stormwater improvement projects and not part of Governor DeSantis's Executive Order 2306, which provides at least $100 million annually for priority projects to improve water quality in the Indian River Lagoon. The $7 million will be used to fund the 15 projects indicated on this slide. 8 are owned by Brevard County and 7 are owned by Satellite Beach. These projects will provide water quality improvements to the IRL. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection requested our assistance managing the funding contracts for these projects. Our Bureau of Project Management has a very good and long-standing working relationship with these, working cooperatively with DEP on cost-share projects, and we're happy to help them out. There is no district funding committed to these projects. Here is a list of the 15 projects with the amount of state funding in the far right column. We have successfully partnered with Brevard County and Satellite Beach on past and current cost-share projects and are looking forward to working with them on these. And that brings me to the recommendation before you today to approve the resolution, resolution number 2023-01, to amend our adopted fiscal year 22-23 adopted budget by up to $7 million.
Any questions for Mr. Jenkins on the matter? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We're going to move to item 12, projects with, General Engineering Services. Dale, this is your item as well, and we're going to consider item 12. You're recognized.
Chair Bradley and board members, the second of my 3 items for your consideration is approval of the ranking of the top 5 consultants to provide as-needed engineering services and authorizing the executive director to negotiate multi-year contracts and one additional 2-year renewal term with these firms. The district implements several programs and projects that will support their 4 core missions shown in the graphic on the right. Examples of district staff duties include performing engineering feasibility studies, designing water resource projects, developing regional water supply plans, and providing construction support for various projects. It is not uncommon that the district requires assistance with these types of services to help expedite completion of our projects and studies. Therefore, the district wishes to enter into continuing services contracts with licensed engineering firms who have expertise in our kind of work. On February 14th, the district advertised a request for qualifications for general engineering services on the governmental procurement websites illustrated here on the slide. Several companies downloaded the solicitation documents, and 21 companies submitted proposals by the March 17th deadline. A 3-person evaluation committee reviewed and scored all 21 proposals using the criteria shown here. The maximum number of points a respondent could receive from each of the committee members was 10, so the maximum score would be 30. The RFQ stated the district intended to select the top 5 ranked firms, and the ranking and total score for those firms are shown here. Each has at least one woman, veteran, or minority-owned business, enterprise, or small business firm on their team. With your approval and after successful negotiations, the district will enter into 3-year contracts with each of these 5 firms. The total budget combined for the 3 years is $3 million, subject to governing board approval of subsequent future fiscal year budgets. The contracts are renewable for 1 2-year term if desired. The contracts will be work order based and are issued to the most qualified firm. It is the district's intent to distribute the work equitably. In the event 2 or more firms have the requisite qualifications and experience for a work order, the district will designate the award to the firm with the least volume of work previously awarded under this contract. And this brings me to the recommendation before you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You recognize, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Dale, I have a couple of questions for you. One, the renewal of the contract, is that come back to the board or executive director can do that?
I think the executive director can do that, and that's part of the recommendation today.
Okay, so it would go to executive director, right? Correct, okay. My,
Well, today we're approving a subsequent 2-year renewal term. Is that a second 2-year renewal, or?
No, it would just be the 2-year renewal that's part of this, not an additional one.
Okay, so none of the aforementioned firms were being asked to consider extending on a 2-year basis.
This is all new, so it'll be
These
a
are all
new
new.
contract.
And so part
then
of
the ability
part of what you're asking for is the power to do that.
Correct.
Is that
That's correct.
rather than authorizing a 2-year extension? Okay. I misread glad we had that clarification, at least for me anyway.
The
Go
next
ahead.
question is that you did mention, thank you for including minority and small businesses, but in your scores, there is no provision for that. You have provision for location, and I'm not sure if really that matters because so many of the project gets done virtually. But I think when you have an addition of percentage, 5%, 10%, like DOT has 12% requirements, I think it would encourage small businesses to be included because what we do is to distribute the work among the 5 firms, right? And the 5 firms are specialized in this. I like to see smaller firms to be able to do the same thing, so we develop other generation of consulting firms that can do the same kind of work. It's kind of specialty. So it's to your advantage, I think, to bring small businesses along. I think that would encourage them if you have a percentage that would allocate it to that.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The WMBE criteria, so to speak, is in number 1. That's within overall qualifications and capabilities. It's within that total ranking, but you're right, it's not called out specifically.
I saw that, Dale, but I mean, it's almost like, it's like we encourage them to do it. But if you have a specific 5%, you can start with 5%. 5% is not a whole lot. And so we would get to know who is the next generation of engineers that would do the same kind of work. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I agree with the ranking and the idea of having a stable of consultants, and with that, I move for approval.
All right, is that a motion to, for all 3 items that were under the requested action?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that a second for all 3 items under the
Yes,
requested
yes,
action?
sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for all 3 items requested for action on 12. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is approved unanimously. Mr. Jenkins is going to stay with us for consideration of no-cost time extensions for 6 cost-share projects. You're recognized.
Chair Bradley and board members, my last item for your consideration is approval of no-cost time extensions for 6, there we go, cost-share projects. The 6 project names and locations are indicated here on the map. In general, the reasons provided by our cost-share partners for the extensions included primarily ongoing issues with the supply chain, but also staffing challenges, adverse site conditions, delays executing agreements, and in one case, a delay caused by Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. In summary, 2 of the 6 projects need 6-month extensions, and the remaining 4 require extensions ranging from 9 to 18 months. All 6 projects are underway, and each entity demonstrated good cause for the extension requests. We tailored the length of the extensions based on our discussions with them and their expressed needs. Here are some details on the reasons for the extension requests. This table is also provided in your board memo. These projects were approved by the board for either district-wide or Indian River Lagoon cost-share programs. And that brings me to the recommendation before you today to authorize these 6 no-cost time extensions.
Can we go back to the list? All right. And while I look at that a little, again, I obviously reviewed the packet before, but it's good to remind myself. I understand this is item 13, so there is a public
comment
card.
Sean Liskey from Indian River County Department of Utility Services.
Put it back up, please. The item I just asked to show on the screen. All right. Ta-da. You're recognized. Go ahead.
Morning, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Sean Leesky, and I'm the Executive Director for Indian River County Department of Utility Services. I just wanted to come this morning and talk to you a little briefly about our project. First, we really appreciate the district's assistance with this project. It's in an impoverished area of our county. It's really needed to get these homeowners onto sewer. They've been having problems with flooding and failing septic tanks in this area for a long time. So again, I really appreciate the opportunity. I also, as it has been mentioned, we've certainly had supply chain issues with this project, but one of the more challenging issues we've had is trying to get easements and actually get a location for our lift station. We had to split the project up into 2 phases, phase 3A and 3B. 3B is actually currently underway, and we've actually had the public infrastructure already installed. 3A, we have continued to run into challenges of actually trying to locate our lift station. We ended up having to purchase some land from Habitat for Humanity in order to actually locate that lift station. We've got that land, we're in the design, we're moving forward, and we do greatly appreciate your consideration of the time extension.
All right, any questions? this individual? Thank you for coming. All right, I'm going to propose something unusual. If I hear supply chain one more time, I think we're kind of getting past the supply chain a little bit in the world. So, and I appreciate Indian River County taking the effort to come here, and I probably should have mentioned this to staff before we arrived, but I would like to temporarily postpone this item if that would be okay with the board, with the exception of Indian River County. They've made a presentation here in person on what their concerns are, and that we'll bring it back but if I could have that courtesy.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone the Saratoga Springs Equity Lifestyle, Spanish Oaks, Deltona, Alexander Avenue Reclamation, Satellite Beach, Lori Lane, Stormwater, and Orange Park septic conversion. And part of that motion is to approve the Indian River County West Wabasso Septic to Sewer Phase 3 extension.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to grant Indian River County's extension, but we're going to temporarily postpone consideration of the other requests.
That's my request, sir.
Thank you. And I have a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for that, and approved unanimously.
Let it be known that Indian River did good showing up.
Yeah. And in fairness to the other, I mean, we did not specifically ask anybody to be here, so no one's offended anyone by not appearing. Let me be clear, at all. I just would we need to get these things going. And the staff does a wonderful job of staying on top of this. This is no reflection of Dale's incredible management and his teams of all of these things. But I just want everyone to understand that the board is watching these things very closely. We read our packets, and we are very concerned about making sure that these tax dollars get sent out in a way that is quick, and there needs to be reasons when they are not done. You're recognized.
I just would like to say, as a manufacturer in the Space Coast area, supply chain is still a problem. We see it every day. And further to complicate that is the labor supply on the Space Coast. We're now launching 80 rockets this year, and the space industry has picked up a large amount of our labor force. So that has hurt a lot of smaller businesses right now in the ability to find people. I know it sounds like an ongoing excuse, but I see it every day, and I've got to explain that to my customers who sometimes give me no quarter as well. But just to say that yes, it frustrates me as well in my personal business, and it's real still. So
that's a fair point, and thank you for providing that expertise and adding to the discussion. General, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He covered my concerns.
Thank you. Great. Okay. We're gonna stick with, do we have, did we do the motion?
Mayor Bradley?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I've just become aware of the fact that we also have representatives in the audience today for CCUA, Equity Lifestyles, and Orange Park, but they didn't fill out public comment cards.
Okay. Great. Let's do it. I'll recognize CCUA.
I thought that guy had a strange look on his face with our motion. Whoop. Should have filled out a comment card.
Thanks for that. My name is Joe Paternity. I'm Assistant Chief Engineer for CCUA, and I appreciate the board recognizing me today and the cost share that you provided to us to help with our project. The delay in delivery is documented from our contractor. It's in your packet, I believe. It is a supply chain. Everything else is done on the project. We're just waiting for the electrical gear to show up so we can finish the project. So we appreciate your support on that.
All right. Is there a, and I understand that unless something's in hand, you always are concerned about people following through on what they are proposing or promising, but do we have some assurances from the suppliers that this is going to get this thing done?
I have some documentation, I believe that was in your packet, but the manufacturer Eaton Supply is stating that the equipment will ship on May 19th, and delivery will be July, and then the installation will proceed after.
All right. If they do follow through on those delivery dates, then this will be sufficient time to complete the project under the revised contract date if that's approved. All right, great. Thank you. And I understand Equity Lifestyles is here too.
That was the other strange face I saw.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Nelson with Jones Edmonds, and we represented Equity Lifestyles in the design of this project. And this project has about 459 mobile homes that are going to a package treatment plant. And the idea was to, or the design originally was to decommission that, take the force main, connect it to Marion County through a developer who is going to help connect that. But that project that fell through. So we've had to subsequently redesign and take that water about 3,000 feet to the city of Ocala. And so there was some changes in the design, no change in the funding agreement or anything else. We just needed a little bit more time to, because there was a little bit more funding needed on their side. And so.
Hold on a second, there's a question. Go ahead.
We're expanding 18 months.
What you're describing, the question from the vice chairman is 18 months, that's a lot. Is there is there a thought that perhaps it could be quicker? Or would that be just setting you up to come back here at another time?
Well, the project has to go out to bid and get constructed, so.
Oh, it has to go back out to bid.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So it's almost like a new project.
Well, no, it's been designed. The funding agreement for the districts is the same. It's just, we're just taking the water a different direction.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I have no objection to making a motion to reconsider removing CCUA Saratoga Springs and also Equity Lifestyles.
Isn't there another one here? Somebody else here?
Orange Park.
All right. There we go.
I'll hold my motion, sir.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought she had said that. Hi.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Kyle Croce, Public Works Director for the town of Orange Park. I appreciate the partnership that we've had. We did have delay issues due to the storms this year. We handle our own, internally, our personnel, we handle our own debris collection and removal, and that has put us back on the project. Being a small town, we do have contracts with private companies for debris removal, but we've been able to handle it in town internally with our personnel. So that did delay part of the project for the septic to sewer conversion, as well as some of the access on one of the roads for getting there and getting access from the property owners. But we appreciate it. We have 26 sections, 26 homeowners that are ready to be connected out of the 50. So we're moving forward, and we're very happy. We look at this project as being one of the last ones for, actually the last one for the town of Orange Park, and we believe that there won't be any more septic tanks after this project will be completed.
And I have some familiarity with this particular project, and I will tell you that it's amazing. This is a success story in the sense that the town of Orange Park will now have everybody off septic when it's done, which is you never see that. There's a lot of a big tip of the cap to your work and all the folks that work there at the town of Orange Park. Have the access issues? Are there any other issues to be resolved or?
There's one area that needs to be resolved, and it's an access to two homes.
But it doesn't interfere with your ability to move forward on the project.
That's correct, sir.
That's the right. There might be something about somebody complaining about right. These things happen. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I totally understand Orange Park project due to hurricane. I can accept CCUA because of like 6 months, but a project that is 18 months delayed, that's problematic. I'd like to hear if our staff, Dale, you can explain a little bit further.
Yes, I can, Madam Vice Chair,
Okay,
and that's a
thank
great question. The reason is Equity Lifestyles, it was totally funded by DEP, okay? So as you know, our cost share program, the board just funds construction only. Equity Lifestyles received all the money from DEP. It also included the design. So they had to get the design and the permitting, all that done first. And that's why the 18-month extension, now that that's been completed, that's so they can go out to bid, get a contractor to build the project, and then that'll take 18 months. And, you know, that kind of fits in with what we typically do in cost share. We try to get the projects built in 2 years. So that seems reasonable from a construction perspective.
Isn't it that you are extending another 18 months? So you have 2 years and then you're expanding another year and a half. I don't recall seeing our projects to be expanded 18 months.
It's a long time. It's just for construction. And I believe we gave a staff level extension for this project just to get the design to completion. Is that correct? Yeah. So it took a while to get the design completed. And as Mr. Nelson stated, he had to take it back and redesign it.
Okay, I'm going to make a proposal here, and then we'll continue. Let's we temporarily postpone those other items, so we can just take a motion. We don't have to reconsider or anything. So, is there a motion to go ahead and approve the revised contract for CCUA and Orange Park?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right, so we have 3 of the 6 that have now been approved for their extensions. Now let's consider Equity Lifestyles. Is there any further discussion on Equity Lifestyles or any motions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Dale, how much money are we contributing towards this project?
Towards equity?
Yes.
None. It's all state funding. It's all DEP.
Managing.
So we're managing the project
Yes,
then?
sir.
And managing the disbursement of the funds.
Yes, sir.
So,
We're processing the invoices.
I'm not, excuse me for you being here and hearing us talk, but we're supposed to talk in the public, so we're going to talk. So the problem is when a project lasts and drags out like this, Dale has to worry about it for an extra year and a half, which is really 3.5 years, which means a little bitty piece of Mike Register has to worry about it, and a little bitty piece of Mary Ellen has to worry about it, and a little bitty piece of all these people do. And we funded this project based on a decision. And from a bigger picture, and I'm not trying to yell at staff, but it would be better for us. Obviously, this project was known that it's not going to make it on 6/28. This thing probably should have, when the major problem happened, probably should have came back to us a year ago saying, whoa, problem. And then we can make a decision. Do we want to give that money out? And please reapply. It's a good project. But since this isn't our money, it's DEP, we're just managing it. And obviously we can't backcharge dad, calling DEP dad. But it is complicated when you think about every month Dale has to fix his little project schedule, what's going on, and make sure of what's going on. So from that, I think, Chairman, probably your concerns are how do we not get in this loop further? And I saw the vice chair go, whoa, this is a long extension. Why? So I think the conversation here, Mike might be able to, our executive director might come back to us sometime and say, hey, let's have a better check sheet instead of 30 days before the project's going to expire or 45 days saying, hey, it's going to be a 2-year extension. Because that could have been done probably a year ago when they realized no right away. I'm not trying to beat up the specific project. I'm using the project as an example in total.
Understood.
Mr.
Yes, sir. You're recognized. Does someone?
Chair Bradley, I just want to
Oh,
add
I
maybe a
thought
little
that
background.
was one
maybe
of
a
the
little-
board members. I apologize. Go ahead.
A little more background on this one, Mr. House. This was not recommended for board funding, but we passed it through to DEP for consideration of springs restoration funding because it's a benefit. This project has benefits to the Silver Springs spring shed. And the department saw it, they liked it, they said, we'll fund it, we just need you guys to manage it.
But we're managing it.
Right. Yeah.
And this is why. I mean, this is. I mean, when you manage it, it's not free.
Staff.
I mean, it
More-
takes a lot of effort, and that's why they have us handle it, and not us in particular, but all of us collectively as a district.
So maybe what
but
we
go
need,
ahead.
maybe what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, is Dale does a really good project sheet, and there's greens for on time, on budget going, and there's yellows warning, and there's reds. And so obviously this is a red project, but really it's an understandable. And so it might be better for us to go through that list at one time and say, hey, let's bring this list and make it current, because the red, if we chose to extend this, would turn green based on a new project thing and not always stay red. In the world of it, at least in my world, when I did own a mobile home park at one point, it was terrible. We had 100 residents, and this bad thing is 95 of them paid on time and was always there. You only worry about those 5. Why didn't you pay? And so with us, management by exception, we look at the reds, right? And so why is this red? And so possibly maybe we should have a one-time air our laundry of our project list of reds, yellows, and greens, and look at that and consider that thought process for all the red projects possibly, because there might be others out there, and since we're trying to help manage and we realize Dale has resources, maybe that's a solution that we should take up at another board meeting.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir. General, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do share the concerns of other board members, but it is what it is. DEP is not paying for it, and I would be concerned about the perception that it's being slow rolled from a perception of getting DEP's money moving forward. And Mr. Chairman, you are right. Dale is incredibly good at managing this stuff, but you can't keep one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat when the tide starts coming in. You got to kind of decide where to go. I'm recommending and support approving this delay. I don't like these delays this long, but it is what it is.
Now, are you looking to do the entire list or just Equity Lifestyles right now?
Oh, no,
Because there's
sir.
two left.
Just Equity Lifestyle.
Got it. Okay. So we have a motion to allow the Equity Lifestyles contract to be moved to this proposed revised date. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move Equity Lifestyles from 6/28/23 to 12/28/24. Is there any discussion?
Given the length of time, sorry, I didn't get recognized, but given the length of time for this extension, I think the board should get some updates periodically that, and I appreciate that I get copies of your reports, and I do look at those, and that is helpful. But if we're going to have this level of concern about these issues, and maybe we should be a little bit more informed on it publicly so we can have these discussions. The other thing I'll hold my other comment for after we're done with Equity Lifestyles.
All right, and the other thing to do is if anybody would like to motion to amend the motion if 12/28/24, but you're open for, and I'm not saying this because that's what I'm pushing for or anything, to be clear. But one option for the board is to change the 12/28 to another date, but still move forward with the underlying motion of granting some level of revised contract extension.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll agree with that. If we can get this project on in 6 months.
Okay. What about we do 6/20? So what about, would you consider a motion to amend to make it 6/28/24 rather than 12/28/24?
Absolutely.
All right, is there, okay, we have motion and a second to amend the underlying motion for the revised date to be 6/28/24. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion to amend the underlying motion is passed unanimously. Now we have before us a motion to allow Equity Lifestyles to extend its contract from 6/28/23 to 6/28/24. That is the motion before the board. I'm sorry, that is a proposed motion for the board's consideration. Does anybody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to give them a year. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, there we go. Okay, we have left, after these four matters, Indian River County and Deltona. Those two considerations have been temporarily postponed. Please place that on the next agenda. All right? Thank you, Dale. Oh, you got anything else you want to add?
Oh, yeah.
Satellite Beach.
That beach on there.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for, make sure I think everything's clear and it's not Indian River County. Satellite Beach and Deltona. I didn't mean to give Indian River County a heart attack. Those are the two items. And again, to our friends in Satellite Beach, Deltona, no one's mad at you. No one's anything. We have a job as a board, right? We're exercising our duties as a taxpayer, as stewards of taxpayer dollars. The staff does a wonderful job. We love Dale and his team and Mike and his team. We all have our respective roles to play in this system, and we look forward to hearing from you two further. All right?
So, Mr. Chair, those
Yes.
two items will be brought back on next
Yes.
month's agenda because that will be before the.
It will be.
Yep.
So it will be in the June agenda.
Okay, well, let's extend, is there a motion to extend, yeah,
They're good through June, so
that's what I thought.
we can bring them back at the June board meeting without a problem.
That's what I was just saying, we need to.
Right, oh, yeah, I agree. Yes, understood. Yep. We're on the same page, thank you. All right, now we're gonna move to, Dale, is that it?
No, sir, I have an informational item for you next.
Oh, yeah, you have the Division of Projects update. You're like, what's coming next?
Would it be better to wait for this, since we've given some new direction to do this?
Yeah, why don't we, and it's been a great meeting and we've gone through a lot. Let's just take item 14 and handle that along with the other items. We're gonna have some consideration, some for information next month. Thank you, Dale. Appreciate your work.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, item 15, St. John's River Water Management District Facilities. Trina is going to give us some information. You recognize.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Trina Vielhauer. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff, and I have an informational item for you, number 15, regarding our district facilities. As you can see on this map, the district has 10 different office or field station locations throughout the district. Of those 10, the district owns 9 office buildings, service center locations, and that totals approximately 316,601 square feet. Of our office buildings, we do have a lease agreement for one. That's the Jacksonville Service Center. That lease is for 9,494 square feet which makes up approximately 3% of our square footage across the district. The Jacksonville Service Center lease was renegotiated in 2020, and we were successful in securing rates that were competitive with the then current market. The landlord at that time also agreed to do about $190,000 worth of renovations to that office space. And the current lease for Jacksonville expires December 31st of 2031. The current lease rate for Jacksonville is $18.29 per square foot, and over the full 10-year term of the lease would cost approximately $1.825 million. The lease has 2 optional renewals, and it also allows the district to terminate in a couple of different scenarios. So the first scenario is we can provide 6 months written notice if space in a building we own or that the state owns becomes available. We can provide 6 months written notice, no penalty to terminate. The second scenario is each year we can evaluate and provide written notice 90 days prior to the end of each year that we would like to terminate, and there is no penalty for that. So the district will continue to evaluate the options for the Jacksonville Service Center and look at all potential options out there. And that's my update.
You're recognized, Madam Vice Chair.
Trina, thank you for the report. In what situation that we purchase a building or rent, and it wouldn't be beneficial for us to purchase one in Jacksonville?
And so we have looked at buildings that are for sale currently in Jacksonville, as well as a 2019 cost estimate for building. That information is in your packet. At this point, there is still volatility within both the leasing and market space world, as well as supply chain and labor issues that we are hearing. So our recommendation right now, based upon those fluctuations and variabilities, is to keep our eye on it, keep doing an analysis, and report back to you as we see options.
How many years contract this is?
It is 10 years.
10
It expires
years.
December of 2031. Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, there is no provision that if we find something better or we can purchase that we
Correct.
can, so, and 10 years is a long time.
Correct. And we do have, as I mentioned, those provisions in there where every year we're allowed to provide 90 days written notice. If we have found some better option for us, we can terminate with no penalty.
That's a good point.
So the 90 days, I mean, if they provide a space within that building, you still can leave if you want to?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Let's say if
We can get out every year with
Correct.
90 days notice.
So,
Correct.
I mean,
Yes.
that's it. I mean,
Correct.
Okay, that's all
Correct.
good?
Yep.
The
Yes,
90
ma'am.
days is good?
Yeah, it's good. And we make some improvements to the space, so you want to have some stability and making sure that, those improvements, they don't pull the plug on you after you've put some money in. It's a good balance.
So 90 days.
It's a good balance. Yes.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'm very familiar with the Jacksonville area. And I know the commercial real estate has tanked, and I think it's going to further tank. This is a great location, but do we need that high price of a location? We're operating where folks come to us for us to do business for them. So it's not like we're asking for customers. The line is long. So I would say we would look very closely at opportunities beyond this campus because the business is shuttering up there every day. Amazing, nice building. So I think we need to wait and see, but don't get overly excited about this for the long term. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fair point. As somebody who was a happy former owner of office space, man, it's rough out there for people who are on the landlord side. It is a renter's market, and that's always something to keep in mind. You're recognized.
In your analysis, are we How much or what percentage, or are we fully using that 9,000 square feet? And do we need the full, do we anticipate a full 9,000 square feet of office space at this time in Jacksonville?
We are currently fully utilizing that space. We did downsize back in 2020 when we renegotiated that lease. I believe we lost about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet at that point in time, but it is fully utilized at this point.
Yes, recognize.
Karina, are we thinking, or maybe that question is better for Mike. Mike, how about in our budgeting cycle, can we have start looking at properties that we can purchase? Because I really believe, as General said, there is going to be a lot of good properties that we can buy.
Yeah, we can certainly start looking at that, especially as we move into the budgeting process and move into the future years budgeting process. I think, as Trina said, we continually look at this, kind of on an annual basis to see how the market's doing versus how the rent that we're paying is there, making sure that we consider all the cost of, owning a building and having to do the maintenance and all of that. And so I think continuing to do that, but have, provision for that in the budget could be something we could look at.
Mr. Chairman, the on your sheet, the summation sheet, we have an average rental price of $18.29 a square foot. Is it really much lower than that now and it escalates up, or is it just a constant rate all the way through?
On our lease agreement,
Yes.
it does escalate. Initially, it started off very low the first couple of years, and then it does have an escalation clause.
So what's the current price per square foot?
The current is right around $18.29. And then we do have an escalation clause each year afterwards. I can get you the actual year by year.
We're going up, 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 up.
Correct.
Okay.
In the existing lease. And I do have that chart I can provide.
One of the things, Mr. Chair, when you make an office move, it sort of slows things down. So I know growth is slowing down some just because of the uncertainty in the economy. And I won't talk about Democrats or any of that stuff. But the reality is when it does slow down, that would be a time for us to move, because we'd have less permittability, so to say. So there's a logic that when it looks bleak outside, that's actually when we're not doing as much work. So that would be the time for us to move. So I think if we brought this up to an agenda item to us, call it in July or August, that would give us the 90 days time of notice, since this is a January 1 type lease, for having the 90 days.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's do that, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless there was anybody else who wanted to discuss the matter. Thank you. All right, we have no public comment cards that have been submitted. Item 7, that was item 16. Items 17 through 28 were already approved when we approved the consent agenda. So we're going to go to item 29. Ms. Preston, pending litigation, if you could advise the board on that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have updates on 4 cases this afternoon. 2 of them are per curiam affirmed opinions from the District Courts of Appeal. One of them is Ned Bowers versus Orange County and the district. This was in the 6th DCA. However, there is a pending motion on that, so we will not receive the mandate until that motion is disposed of. The other one is from the 1st District Court of Appeal. That was in the case of William G. Merriman versus the district, and we are awaiting the mandate on that one as well. Another case has been set for for final hearing at the Division of Administrative Hearings. This is James Hensley versus the Marsh Landing at Sawgrass Master Association and the district. It will be a split hearing due to the judge's schedule June 16th and 21st. And then the last case update for today is a settlement. I'm happy to report that the case Paul Miller versus the district, which is in the circuit court in Seminole County, the case has involved a motor vehicle accident, and it settled on April 27th.
All right, any questions of Ms. Preston on the law firm that we run? Or she runs on our behalf. Thank you. Any governing board comments? All right.
Circling back to 8. Or is that postponed?
It's temporarily postponed, and that's what it is right now. right. All right.
Mr. Chair,
You're recognized. Item 31, Executive Director Report and Calendar. Yes.
before we go back, I think Mr. Farrell, he's still here, was going to address the board about, he wanted a chance to talk back on item 8, if that's amenable.
Oh, okay. Great. Chris, go ahead. You're usually over there, but then
yeah.
you, right. So that's why I looked over there and you're recognized.
Not as much AC over here. I think it'll be my new spot.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify some of my comments. I saw this item yesterday, and so I didn't mean to suggest you shouldn't move forward with this project. I need to learn more about it. I'm going to talk with staff afterwards. I wanted to use it as it does involve a couple things, though, that we've been concerned about. One is mitigation use for vegetation management. So that's something I would enjoy exploring with staff about, what their considerations are and when that's appropriate. And then also the management of these tussocks and marsh vegetation, removing habitat, marsh vegetation for other goals is tricky. So I just wanted to bring those up. Staff and Brian, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to go look at the lake. So I just wanted to let you know I wasn't saying that you should say no to this project necessarily. Thanks.
Okay. Item 31, Executive Director's Report and Calendar. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Where I get up where I don't have to say next slide every time on the on it. That'll bring back bad memories for some people that were here in earlier years. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Showing again that our staff are always ready to help out. On April 12th, we were getting ready to launch our boat to do some sampling runs near Georgetown when we were asked by Putnam County firefighters to transport them to a house fire on Hog Island there in Lake George, where it's circled right there. And they joined some other firefighters who were on their own boat. And then after providing that assistance, they continued on to do their monitoring sites work and complete their work. So big thank you to them for helping out. And I'm sure although the house fire looks pretty engulfed there, I don't know if they saved it, but I'm sure Putnam County was thankful for the help. We also, in our recruiting efforts, have reinstituted our Take Your Child to Work Day and had that on April 26th with more than 60 sons and daughters of the staff participating. It was a great educational and fun day where they got to learn a little bit more about their work. I did tell all the kids that their parents don't get to do that much fun every day, but they got to learn a little bit about it, and maybe we got the opportunity to recruit some future staff members there. And then preparing for hurricane season, Dave Dickens, he's actually, I think, down at the Governor's Hurricane Conference right now, learning everything about it, or up, I guess it's in Tallahassee this year. But, he's highlighting the importance of partnerships, making those contacts so that we can be prepared. We went through a little dry run is maybe the wrong word for it, but a dry run of some of our hurricane preparedness here just recently, so that we'll be all ready for the start of hurricane season in June. And that concludes that report. Our board meeting is scheduled for June 13th next month. The district will be closed on Monday, May 29th to observe Memorial Day. And our Memorial Day picnic with staff is scheduled for lunch on Thursday, the 25th. Any of the board members that would like to attend are certainly welcome to come and try to dunk me in the dunking booth. And that concludes my report.
Anybody any questions for Mr. Register?
Which of those balls to throw?
Free?
That's even funner.
All free.
Did you have something?
Well, I can cover it under item number 31 or.
We're on item 31 right now.
Okay, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm in after. So, Mike, first of all, I want to say thank you to you and your team, your staff. I was at a luncheon for Congressman Aaron Bean yesterday, and somebody recognized me being under water management, and they couldn't say enough nice thing about dealing with our staff. That really made me proud. proud of being here as with my colleagues, serving the people and having a staff and team that we can count on. And then somebody else says something nice, and then somebody else said something nice. And I was very proud yesterday and today. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I agree. I've had similar interactions with, not only stakeholders, but the public at large, and it's been uniformly positive. We're on a really good momentum right now. So, seeing no further questions from Mr. Register, this meeting, without objection, this meeting is adjourned.